Hello, lighting people. At Inside Lighting, we tend to focus mainly on topics related to general lighting and architectural lighting. And as we struggle through the interesting business climate of 2020, we've seen many vertical markets and business sectors like hospitality and retail suffer significant hits. But there's one sector related to lighting that continues to grow and has been growing over the past number of years, and that's horticultural lighting. And we thought today would be a good time to speak with one of the leading companies in that sector. So that's why we've invited David Cohen, the CEO of Fluence by Osram, to join us today to talk about the horticultural lighting market. David, hello, and thank you for joining us today for 5 big questions.
Hi, Al. Thank you very much. It's really great to be here. I look forward to the questions.
Great, thanks. You know, David, the headlines for horticultural often tend to include, the cannabis market and some news related to the cannabis market. But as humans, we tend to consume much more agriculture than we do cannabis. My neighbor Doug might challenge that notion, but as we do take a serious look at the market, what do you see the real opportunities present and into the short-term 3 to 5 year future for horticultural lighting?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we're seeing right now is cannabis is growing dangerously fast, I would say. I have not been associated with a market that has grown this fast in really my entire career. There's seemingly endless opportunities right now to participate in the expanding global market, especially as legalization takes hold throughout the world. It's not just something that's happening in the United States. It's happening in Europe medicinally. It's happening in Asia. It's happening all over the world. We are running as fast as we possibly can to keep up with requests for quotes, questions from our customers, requests to come and visit and look at their facilities. So I would say your question to the next 3 to 5 years, I would break it into really 2 pieces. In the shorter term of that, 2 to 3 years, I would struggle to see a slowdown. You have some additional states in the United States that are going to legalize. They're going to legalize recreational, probably. Europe is moving very, very quickly to legalize. Beyond 5 years, it's difficult to tell. This is project-based. These growers set up a grow inside. If they do decide to make the LED decision, LED lights last a long time. So there's going to be some cycle here where it starts to plateau a bit and maybe drops off. But I would say for the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to continue to see really, really strong growth. I mean, LED lighting has taken a crop that's been traditionally grown outside and proved that it can be grown inside with better yields and better quality. And I would envision at some point really soon a world where, for cannabis at least, it's LED only. I mean, it's better efficiency, it's better output. It's overall better for the plants as well.
Sounds promising. That's encouraging news about the market. And when you consider the current business climate with the pandemic, what effect has the pandemic had on your business, and what strategic adjustments have you made to Fluence's business to adapt to those challenges?
Yeah, this has been, unprecedented. I lead off all of my staff meetings and my quarterly updates to the company and reminding everybody this is my first global pandemic. So there's been a lot thrown our way that we've had to adjust to. But first and foremost, I would say there is more urgency now, more than ever, to secure our food and healthcare supply. So, the customers really became hyper aware and consumers of food availability, freshness, and quality. It became very real, very, very quickly. For us, we saw a slowdown for sure. When things first started to really get bad, I would say in the late spring, March and April, we saw a lot of our customers just take a giant step back and assess. They couldn't get workers in to maintain the crops. The capital markets dried up very, very quickly. And an enormous part of our overall strategy is being there with our customers. The end transaction for us is a piece of hardware that we call, which is a light. But what we're bringing to the customers is horticulture services, plant biology services, fertilization, irrigation, all the things that the grower needs to adjust when they buy an LED light. So we also had to pivot on that, not being able to see customers, not being able to visit, not being able to go to trade shows, really meant that our marketing department had to really reinvent our go-to-market strategy. So we've adjusted. I'd like to say that we don't say yet that everything's behind us, but we've pivoted and we're doing a lot of webinars, a lot of phone calls, and now we're starting to get back out on the road. So I would say the biggest impact was maybe a 2 or 3 month slowdown, but now on the other side, what we're seeing now is demand it's crazy. Customers are back, they want to get growing, and they want to start making money, and they need their lights. We're doing the best we can.
Excellent. Yeah, it's challenging to respond to that demand, but certainly it sounds like you have your strategies in place to do that. And one of the interesting things about horticultural lighting demand is that these end users, the growers, they tend to, even though there's tons of like science and research that goes into how to best produce yields with certain crops at certain stages of growth, there also tends to be a lot of just really blatantly differing opinions among some of the end users of these on what light to apply at what stage of growth for the different recipes that they tend to use for the crops that they grow. How does a company like Fluence adapt its product line so that it can be adjustable to all these different growers who have these different theories and ways to apply the product?
Yeah, I mean, when I got to Fluence in 2018, what I found was a company that was driven by science, driven by the research of what works and what doesn't, for exactly the reason that you just pointed out. There are a lot of opinions out there, and the growers are a particular breed. I would equate them to like fine dining chefs and cooks. These are all scientists and artists at the same time. But from Fluence's standpoint, one of our major initiatives is literally investing tens of millions of dollars in research every year. We run into what you just said often, and the only way that we know how to counter it is verified, third-party, statistically relevant research data. There's a couple of very large universities in Europe. There's a few here in Canada and in the United States and North America, where we are spending a lot of money growing and taking results and comparing it with light recipes and having the third party render an opinion on what's best and what isn't. So a huge part of our approach to this is science first. Whatever is good for the plant is what we will find out ultimately. And we're not pitching a solution because it's our solution. We want to pitch solutions because they are verified and they work.
That's great. Makes sense. And when you consider the Osram part of the Fluence by Osram, your company's 7 years old. It was acquired by Osram in 2018. What types of things does the Fluence and Osram combination bring to the table that, say, other independent manufacturers might not be able to provide its customers?
Yeah, I mean, this is, Al, it's an expensive industry to participate in. With all of the research that you need to do and to make sure that you're talking to growers with science and facts, it needs money. And Fluence was purchased by Osram at a point in time where we had hit that growth curve, and it was, go get additional money and grow the business, or get with a strategic buyer that can help grow the business. And Osram came in at the absolute perfect time. We have access to their full network of resources globally in terms of supply chain, global footprint, sales and marketing offices. When we needed to run up inventory and put capacity in place because demand was spiking, they were there with all the working capital in the world that we needed. And we just have greater flexibility across the board, accessing and leveraging their supply chain, their human resources, their regulatory, their finance. I mean, the view, the big company hovering over the small company can definitely be a challenge. But the alternative here is when you're a small company and you're rapidly growing, you're doubling revenues every year, 5-6 years end over end, you get to the point where you need more behind you, structure, processes, working capital. And Osram has just been a fantastic partner, and they've enabled us to scale. They told me when I was brought in that they bought the company because they see that the growth, even though it was phenomenal, it was lagging behind the market growth. And it actually was. And what they enabled us to do is take advantage of every cannabis opportunity in the world and open doors for us for commercial ag all over the place. Because they were already in the business, Osram, of making horticultural lights. They just were chasing Fluence forever and decided that the only way to catch up is just to buy them. So in my view, it's worked out. It couldn't have worked out any better. It's been a great partnership.
Well, that's great. And yeah, the market has certainly helped you, and your leadership role as a company in that marketplace has certainly paid its rewards, I imagine. And as we look at some of that growth, and as we mentioned earlier, legislation and governmental rulings tend to have impacts on a business like yours. The obvious one is, cannabis. We've had some tailwinds with cannabis creating opportunities in the horticultural lighting marketplace, but there's also been some geopolitical conflict, like for instance with China, where our agricultural exports from the United States to other places may have been impacted by that. So how do you adapt a business or write a business plan when there's so much uncertainty of these external factors? Of course, you have no control over them. And how do you adapt your business to those external factors?
Yeah, I mean, you got a couple of questions in there. So for us, the congressional legislation naturally represents a huge upside for us. The Safe Banking Act passes, and these cannabis producers can access FDIC insurance, depreciate equipment, access capital. That's a game changer for us. But essentially, with the way things have changed globally, and especially with all the geopolitical issues that you brought up, this is an area for us where Osram has been invaluable in helping us. We're localized in 46 countries around the world. We're using their resources in countries where we're doing business. So while the lights themselves, the design, the ideas behind what we're doing are a US-based entity, we're leveraging production facilities all over the world, sales and marketing resources all over the world. We have installations in China because we're building lights in Osram factories in China, using Chinese resources to talk to customers. So I would imagine if this wasn't a relationship in the way it is, it would be almost impossible to get into some of these countries because of the very things you brought up. But the fact remains that all of these countries are looking at food safety the same way. How can we grow our own food? How fast can we get up and running? And when can we stop being reliant on other countries for importation of food? And they need lights. And if we have local resources that are there to help these customers, then that's where we benefit. And we become a company that's localized into any market that we do business in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure does. And congratulations on your fast growth over the many years that Fluence has been providing these types of solutions to the marketplace. We look forward to continued great things from your company. And we thank you, David, for joining us today for 5 big questions.
Thank you, Al. It was really great to be here. I hope I can tackle another 5 sometime soon. Thanks a lot.